Hello and welcome into the Who's On podcast, part of the Sabre Podcast Network. Well, the college football season is officially come to an end. Indiana, of all places, crowned college football playoff national champions. Curt Cignetti going from, I'll start with Indiana, University of Pennsylvania, then to Elon, then to JMU, and then to Indiana. So a lot of ties here on the podcast to Curt Cignetti. So congrats on the national championship. But let's talk about some transfer portal. So I got the best, Greg Madia from the Daily Progress, back with me again to talk about some transfer portal. Greg, football season's over, but it's never really over.
No, no, and what it's late, or I don't know, mid to late January right now, and probably in about I don't know a month or so we'll start talking spring football, right? And beyond to the next, and talking 2026 football. But it was a crazy 2 weeks, right? And it feels like this past weekend it was one after the other. If you were doing something on Saturday evening, you missed five commitments. So there's that. They added two more on Sunday. They're up to 27 signees right now, transfer signees as we speak. Maybe they add one or two more, maybe three, maybe they're done. Kind of feels like they got to be close to done at
Yeah.
this point. But I think they really addressed certain needs in the portal. And you saw, if you've been paying attention to what's going on, you've seen what they've done in the secondary. And of course, the O line and the D line. O line handled a little differently. That was primarily retention. D line through the portal again, because that was what they had to do, right? With Mitchell Melton moving on to the NFL, Daniel Rickert out eligibility, Kazim Moore out of eligibility, Jameer Carter out of eligibility. Had to move forward with the portal in that department. And you saw it play out, and the quarterback situation, of course, is fascinating, and I think smart from the sources I've spoken to and how they're going to handle it. I know we'll get into it, but really smart with what they're doing with Bo Prabula and Eli Holstein. So it's been fun to cover. Kept me on my toes, I'll tell you that. That's for sure. Between sources and and the agents and the players
Yeah.
themselves. My phone was busy. Verizon, if I looked at what I've been doing this month, I'm sure the Verizon usage was way up. So there's
So what
that.
I'm hearing is that you were behind the Verizon outage with all the messages that were coming in.
You know what's crazy? My phone didn't go out. I was still
Oh,
calling, texting sources. I was so thrilled. I was happy. I was getting nervous because I kept seeing other people tweet and text about it. But me, I was good.
what a
So that would have sucked if not.
what a time for that to go down too. But yeah, what I want to do here today is kind of, with the majority, 98% of this class totally done, go through Virginia's transfer portal class in this
Sure.
window. But let's start with this is obviously a new transfer portal style of window. It's one portal window for 2 weeks. And I just want to start with, how do you think, compared to last year, what we saw, what were the changes that you saw that were impacted by changing from, having the winter portal and the spring portal window to this just one portal window?
Yeah, I think at the outset, everybody knew what was at stake in that you have to get it right. If you don't get it right, there is no spring to fix it. Now, I guess that's not entirely true in the fact that you still have players in the portal, right? Players who have not been signed yet. You'll still have them in the portal looking for new homes, and there's going to be probably a couple thousand kids who haven't found spots. So if you really need something, somebody on the waiver wire, so to speak, you can go pick them up if you have to at the end of the spring. If somebody gets hurt or just something didn't work out and what you acquired, you might be able to get a player or two that can help you. But big picture, there is not going to be that reset in the spring like there was last year, right? What was Virginia's biggest need after the spring last year? It was cornerback. How many did they add after the spring? I think seven of the nine cornerbacks they brought in, or seven to nine defensive backs, maybe not just
Yeah.
corner safety too,
Yeah.
were post spring additions. You're not going to have that this time around. So if you had needs, it had to be addressed over the last 2 weeks. So that's what was the biggest change to me is You have to make sure you hit on the players. And you have to make sure you address your needs now because there won't be time in the spring. And because of that, I think you really saw teams be aggressive, particularly in the areas that they had to be aggressive in.
And I think too, they took some chances and some swings on some guys that they normally wouldn't have been very aggressive towards, and just trying to get bodies and depth in there to kind of fill
Yeah,
out rooms because you don't have the chance to add guys later if someone gets hurt for the most part. And like we said, I've kind of theorized with you that I think maybe now some of these guys that are left in the portal, their best option might be to wait out spring ball and
see
kind
who
of
gets
just
hurt. Yeah,
and see who gets hurt, see who like doesn't like their depth, and see if they get some better options down the line. And some guys, we're going to stay and graduate at their universities anyway, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal for them to wait a little bit longer. So it's I don't think we fully know the full ramifications of this portal window yet, and hopefully we can just like stay with it for a year just so we can kind of get a feel for it and before we change everything. I feel like that's the theme in college sports right now is like, well, we tried it one time and we didn't love everything about it, so let's change everything again and try and do something different. Like that's what we do with the college football playoff by wanting to change it from, 4 teams to 12 teams to, 16, 24, how many
yeah,
ever, because we didn't like how it went this year for us. So let's change everything about it. And it's like maybe just take a pause and like let's take a evaluate how this calendar needs to go.
yeah. Now, one thing college basketball has gotten right is they pushed the portal till after the completion of March Madness, which is terrific, right?
Yeah.
That's the ideal. Basketball has that luxury. I think football would love to have that, but because football, these coaches and staffs want to have their players in for spring practice, you don't really have that luxury as long as football's going, unless you start the season earlier or condense the calendar a little bit. But I don't know exactly how you fix that unless maybe you move Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, there's changes that need to be made. We'll see what kind of happens. I was surprised that the big like revelation when the coaches got together recently was, well, let's move the redshirt rule from 4 games to 9 games. I'm like, is that what we need to like focus on right now? I get like the needs for like why they think we need it, but it seems like fixing
At that,
like a pebble in like a big crater, you know?
at that point, just give everybody 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
That's
just
that's
give
what I'm
everybody
saying.
5 years to play out. To me, that would make the most sense. Like I talked to Christian Ellis, right, the safety who transferred from Virginia Tech to Virginia, right, and he walked away from Virginia Tech after playing in 4 of their first 5 games. A big part of that, is because he's looking for, that extra year. Like to me, if you just give the kid five, if you give all the kids 5 years, you don't have that problem, and maybe the 9 solves some of that. So probably solves most of that because you have more games to play with. But
Sure.
to me, just give the kids 5 years so they don't so there doesn't have to be any funny business or tricky business at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna play 9 games now and then sit out the last three. Like,
Right, right, exactly, yeah, exactly, exactly. Or will coaches just be more precise with it and say, you know what, I'm going to sit my freshman out the first 3 games of the year, and
sure.
go with that. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how coaches go to it, but to me, just make it easier on everybody and give everybody 5 years.
Yeah, I mean the waiver and eligibility math has gotten way too complicated. And we're looking for maybe some respite in that, but I don't think we're getting it anytime soon. All right, this transfer portal class for UVA, like you mentioned earlier, 27 total signees. We'll call them signees now.
Yeah.
They've all 27 have signed. There was one flip with Kent State edge rusher Jamon Mathis flipping to Texas Tech. That one was kind of in the offing because we saw him take a visit to Texas Tech. So they still sit at 27. There are 18 outgoing transfers. And then, yeah, so like all in all, where do you think Virginia landed in this transfer portal window with the 27 guys coming in, the 18 going out?
Yeah, I think Virginia did quite well. Like to get Brandon Hillman from Michigan. I mean, he's a plug and play starter. Very similarly, in my opinion, to how they brought in Devin Neal last year. Proven guy, been there on the big stage, played in big games. He's going to walk in and people are going to know that he's going to help them right away. Like that's a great addition. And I've
Yeah.
heard from multiple sources that they're really excited about him. I mean, that's a player to bring him back to his home state, an accomplished player like that. And he could have probably went other places, but that's a big time addition. I think what they've done at quarterback, like I mentioned, is so interesting with Prbula and Holstein. And how they have Prbula lined up for the 2026 season and then Holstein for 2027. I think probably wide receiver was the most challenging position. You lose Trell Harris. I know fans probably were upset about losing Eli Wood, but uh, replaceable nonetheless to put it bluntly. And there were some ups and downs in the recruiting. Right, Chris Durr was a target early, while the Wyoming transfer receiver Iverson Hooks was a target at one point. Hooks ended up at UAB, or excuse me, Oregon from UAB.
Yeah.
Durr ended up at Maryland. But Virginia redeemed itself. Jaquan Gibson, UMass transfer. He's played a lot of different positions. They went to Trell Harris's former school to get Deshaun Martin. So they settled in and found some players that can help them. And I think it was important to get Cam Courtney back. Uh, just as important, right? If you go early in the transfer portal, right? Maddox Marcellus, the linebacker, he spent 4 days in the portal before Virginia and him came to an agreement to come back. And I think that was critical because I don't think you were going to find a linebacker in the portal as steady and as someone who knows your defense as good as Marcellus
Sure.
is. So I thought that was critical, especially with Cam Robinson coming off injury. Like you needed somebody there who had played in some important situations. He was an all-conference player at his previous school, Eastern Kentucky. So that to me was interesting to watch Marcellus and Courtney come back. Marcellus, he told me, he had Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, ACC schools reach out. So for Virginia to get it together and bring him back was critical. I
Yeah.
know they're fired up about that.
Yeah, I think the underrated part of every transfer portal cycle is the retention part of it because look what they did on the offensive line. And I know we laugh at, all these player graphics that like we're coming back and it's like, were you going anywhere? Like it's like it gets to be a lot, but yeah, what they did retention wise, especially in the offensive line, what they were able to bring back there, and kind of throughout the rest of the roster, they got some really solid pieces back, and that is kind of where it all starts. Like that's where you build off of in the transfer portal. Like that's where you add some plug and play places from, guys that graduated and kind of build from there.
Yeah. To me, with the portal cycle, you understood where Virginia spent its money.
Yeah,
Right. I
it's
mean, I
obvious.
mean, very, very clear. Like when you bring back Josie, Bowley, Metcalf, uh, especially like with Terry Heffernan leaving, to make sure those guys were shored up, so that the new O line coach Joey Ork, who's promoted from within, has some continuity to work with. Virginia, they knew they weren't going to find those quality players in the portal on the offensive line. So what do? You pay the big fellas. Those are
Yeah.
hard players to find, especially guys who've played together. So you bring back continuity, and they also brought back McKeelan Thomas and Monroe Mills, who were supposed to be big parts of this past season's O line, just got hurt. So I think what Virginia did, you saw them spent on the O line, you saw them spend on the D line, edge rushers particularly. You also saw them spend a quarterback, right? Then that's kind of what you to match, right? You spend
Those are the
on
three. Yeah.
those are the three, and you kind of fill in everywhere else, and you pick and choose where you want to maybe spend a few more dollars if you can get a player like Hillman or I think about what they've done at running back. Peyton Lewis coming in from Tennessee, another kid coming back to his home state. They've got a couple of different running backs in Solomon Beebe and Jakail
Yeah.
Middlebrook. But I think that's an easier sell to guys like Beebe and Middlebrook when you say, hey, look at all these guys you can run behind. And I talked to Beebe and Middlebrook about it, and they're like, yeah, they told me all about the O line, all those guys who
I'm
are coming
sure.
back. And I think BB's first quote to me was like, the most important thing on a football team is some good old linemen. And I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense for you to say that. So to me, I think you found out where Virginia spent its money, and I think that's the right priority. You look at the two teams that played last night. Where were those teams elite at?
Yeah.
On the offensive line and on the defensive line, right? Indiana with Coogan and Carter Smith, and Miami with Mauigoa, and then on the D line with Bain and Messador. Like those teams spent money to be good in the trenches, and it paid off. They made runs to national championship game, played a classic national title game, where the O line and the D line were the strengths of both teams. It was impressive, and I think Virginia last season, it was a priority to get better in the trenches, and they saw what it did for them, right? Virginia ran for more yards this past season in its program history since like 2004, and it made a difference. So I think, and they got to the quarterback, and I think you try to replicate some of that success, and you found out how Virginia spent its money a little bit.
It doesn't matter, who the quarterback is, who the receivers, the running backs, the DBs are, if you lose the line of scrimmage, because then those guys are on an island. Like everything starts in the trenches on offensive and defensive side. And yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to mention that national championship game. Like those two programs got there because on the strength of their offensive and defensive lines. Like there's no doubt about it. Miami got there because they ran the football really well. Well, how do you do that? You do it with a good offensive line. They were able to play really good defense because they had some of the best defensive linemen in the country. And same with Indiana and just what they were able to do and kind of how steady they were all year on the offensive and defensive lines. Like that's how you build something sustainable. So I think Virginia has recognized that trend, and that's kind of the biggest trend to kind of take note of from this transfer portal cycle is you got to build through the trenches. Everything else will work itself out from there. And plus, like you mentioned, when you got a good offensive line, when you got a good defensive line, the other guys are like, that looks pretty good. I want to play behind that. The other big trend at the skill positions was it seems a lot more versatility and a lot more speed coming in at those positions. You look at the running backs that you mentioned, Jaquel Middlebrook, Solomon Beebe, Peyton Lewis, all very fast guys and also versatile guys that can do a little bit of different stuff. Some good receivers in there, kick returner, pretty versatile there. Then the receivers that they brought in too, Tyson Davis, a really fast player, Deshaun Martin, a really quick player, Jacon Gibson, really quick. So they brought in a ton of speed and just versatility at these skill positions.
Yeah, Gibson's a guy who could play slot or out wide, I was told. Davis is more your traditional slot guy. I think he's only 5'8", 5'9", so he fits more the slot guy. Beebe, he was 13th in the FBS this past season for kickoff return average. He was one of the top kick return guys in the country. I'd expect him to be in the mix for that role,
Yeah.
undoubtedly. He also can catch the ball. He had over 1,000 all-purpose yards. So I see what you're saying about BB. Middlebrook can catch the ball too. Totally comfortable doing it. To me, with those three at running back, Lewis included, uh, the way Virginia uses those will be interesting for a while. Like until Virginia landed Gibson and Davis and brought back Cam Courtney. That was right. That all started like Friday. This
Yeah.
this past when Courtney decided to come back. Uh, until then, I thought, maybe there's a chance they use BB in the slot or
Yeah.
play him out wide because he's lined up in both. If you look at his Pro Football Focus snap count, you can see, he's played some slot, he's played some wide receiver. I don't know if they'll have to do that now, but they can. It's a luxury to have a running back that can do those things, and he can run the ball, of course. So I think that the more players who allow you to play fast at times without having to take them off the field. That's probably a positive. In more ways, Dez can kind of scheme and gadget things for his players. Like you saw really early last year, he had a good grip on how to use his new skill players. All the things they were doing with Cam Ross early, and using the tight end Twitty at times early in the season before they had some injuries. I thought Dez was really creative with a lot of that stuff, and looks like they'll be able to do some of that again this coming season.
Let's go to the quarterback situation that you mentioned earlier. Obviously, that was where a lot of the focus was this offseason, seeing what was going to happen with Chandler Morris's eligibility, being in the DJ Lagway sweepstakes for a little bit there. They ultimately end on a somewhat familiar face, although they never saw him in Jacksonville, and Missouri quarterback Bo Perbula, and also bringing in Eli Holstein from Pitt, another familiar face that they have played before. Um, Ultimately, ending up in this situation again where you're bringing in two quarterbacks, I kind of treat this as completely different from what they did last year when they brought in Chandler Morris and Daniel Kalen, because you're bringing in two guys that have started at the Power Four level to, you know, have that succession plan this year. What did you make of how they ended up at quarterback with Prbula, with Holstein?
Yeah, so Holstein was on their radar, at least according to some sources, for a little bit. Quiet visit.
Yeah.
He had visited actually before Probula had visited, and the thought there is, they can kind of help him develop, right? He had a shaky season this past fall, right? He turned the ball over a bunch, ended up being benched in favor of Mason Heinschel. But I think they still are really excited and thrilled about what Holstein can be because they've seen it. In 2024, he was a five-time ACC Rookie of the Week. He was lighting it up, throwing touchdowns each and every week, right? He had transferred from Alabama to Pittsburgh and ignited their offense a good bit in 2024 when they were playing really, really well, right? Remember, when Virginia went to Pitt that season, Pittsburgh was undefeated. I
Yeah.
believe at the time when Virginia beat them, I think they were 6-0, 7-0 when Virginia went to Heinz Field, or excuse me, Acrisure Stadium and beat them. Um, there's a lot of hope about what Holstein can be come 2027. I don't think this is not a quarterback battle situation.
Yeah.
From the sources I've spoken to, Probula is the guy. Probula is the number one quarterback going into 2026, and he's going to be he's got the keys to the car, so to speak. And then you have Holstein behind the scenes in case, right? Probula does have injury history this past season, missed time because of injury. Holstein's a good backup to have in that situation, but you also work with him behind the scenes. You develop him, and you hope that he refines his form and gets even better when he's the starter come 2027. Likely starter, potential starter come 2027. To me, Virginia's quarterback room is better depth wise. The jury. We'll have to see if Probula can be what Chandler Morris was this past fall for UVA. But I think the backup situation is better. Right, Daniel Kalen had not played in a lot of football games before he showed up. Had not played in any football games
Yeah.
before he showed up at Virginia, and with those two now in Probula and Holstein, you have two guys who've started Power Four conference games for really high level teams. And you have Cole Gear who's developing. And when I talked to Tony Elliott down at the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, he had mentioned how excited he is about Cole Gear's future. And I know the trick play did not go well in Jacksonville. That's not Cole Gear's fault that nobody blocked, right?
Yeah.
That it didn't work out, that Missouri blew it up. But I think you saw that they were comfortable putting him in a situation on the field that they hadn't really done before.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you hope is maybe while these two have the next couple of seasons, maybe Gear develops behind the scenes, and get you a guy for 28. So it's fascinating, and the quarterback situation is so delicate because only one guy plays. You have to be careful about how you talk to the if you're a staff, you have to be careful about how you talk to it, how you project it. And Virginia, it seems like they've been able to figure it out a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little more art and tact to recruiting a quarterback in the
Yeah.
transfer portal, especially. That's why I've been so impressed the last 2 years that you've been able to get two guys to come in, kind of have them buy into kind of what your succession plan is. And you mentioned it there. We saw against Wake Forest last year. I mean, Daniel Kalen just was a guy that came in with not a lot of reps in those situations, almost
Right.
no reps in those situations. And so to then be able to, if the situation like that does occur, to turn to a guy in Eli Holstein who has been a starter at the Power Four level for a pretty good Pitt team the last couple of years. It's a good sign there. And Prbula, I think, is a really good fit for what Virginia wants to do offensively as well. And just maybe adding his run, his run ability.
Yeah.
He's a more willing runner than I would say Chandler Morris was. whether that's by design or just as looks at his reads and takes off.
And remember too, Prbula's coming from a similar system
Yes.
background from what Missouri did to what UVA does, because of course Des Kitchings and Eli Drinkwitz worked together at NC State. I wrote about it before the Gator Bowl. It's a the run systems are pretty identical, pretty similar, almost the same. But the some of the passing elements are different. So we'll have to adjust there. But
Yeah.
I think there is going to be some seamless transition in terms of what it looks like for Prbula going from Missouri to UVA. People wanted Prbula too, right? Tennessee was still coming strong
Yeah.
by the time Virginia secured his commitment. So he was a player sought after in the portal, and Holstein, I think Virginia saw the value in it. I know, I think they're set up well there at quarterback.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the quarterback room. That's a clear upgrade there as a whole. I think there's a good chance that it's at least neutral when you get to the quarterback position next year for Virginia, that they can replicate a lot of the stuff that they had Chandler Morris this year with Bo Prabula next year as the starter. Let's move on. Which position group do you think improved the most? I'm going to hold you to one here, and I'll pick one too. So, which position group do you think they improved the most?
This is a good question. I actually think, ooh, man, this is a good question. I'm trying to think. I'm running through my head of who was acquired and who departed at each spot.
Yeah.
Hmm. I'm actually probably gonna say cornerback.
Okay. I had
Uh,
the secondary as one of mine. So yeah,
Oh,
that's good. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I'll probably say corner. Emilio Agard, proven player from Wisconsin. Yeah, has some NFL aspirations. Can play some nickel, can play corner. I think they've really bolstered the depth of that group. Throw in Jacoby Henderson. You're bringing in a pair of guys who've started at times in the Big Ten. Henderson was a full-time starter for Rutgers. Wisconsin. He Agard played in all the games, started three times. Young player too, right? 3 seasons of eligibility left.
Yeah.
I think they've improved that cornerback room. I know you lose Emmanuel Carnley. Would have been nice to keep him, but with what they've done there, Justin Ross added. I don't know if I don't think he'll be a starter for them in
Yeah.
2026. But you throw those three in with Platt and then Jam Jackson and Jamarick Morris coming back. I know those guys are coming off injury. That group is a lot deeper than it was this past season. So I'll say cornerback is my pick.
Yeah, I think the secondary overall, though, because we talked about
Yeah,
Brandon Hillman coming in and kind
yeah,
of replacing that production that you had with Devin Neal. Like, that's a
yeah.
pretty seamless fit there. And then you got Ethan Minter coming back. They brought some other guys in at the safety position as well. Really intrigued by Jalen McNair, a guy from Buffalo who's had some pretty good production, and it's kind of one of those. I'm not trying to say Tyrann Mathieu like skill level, but like that mold of player that just kind of gets in there and smaller guy that messes things up.
Versatile too.
Yeah, versatile player. You got Corey Costner coming back. So I think the secondary overall is pretty improved. And that was a question mark going into last season.
And I think too, Press, one thing to remember is like Rudd and Jerome Cox, and I guess you can throw Shadon Brown in there. I keep hearing
Yeah,
his
yeah.
name from all the recruits. Right. He had a big deal to do with Emilio Agard's
Yes.
commitment. Because he recruited Agard out of St. Joseph's Prep in Philadelphia when he was an assistant at West Virginia. But I think they've proven the last couple of years they can bring in transfers and catch them up to speed pretty quick. So I think that's one thing that helps even when you're bringing in as many transfers in the defensive backfield as Virginia is again.
I'll stop real quick just so we can talk about the running back position too, because
Yeah.
of the amount of guys in that running back room now.
Whew.
We mentioned earlier the guys they brought in: Peyton Lewis from Tennessee, Jaquel Middlebrook from Middle Tennessee, Solomon Beebe from UAB. Then you got Xavier Brown, Noah Vaughn, Zay Davis. Like it's a pretty locked and loaded position group there, where you're trying to get guys some touches next year.
Yeah, Xavier Brown coming off injury, right? Zay Davis flashed in the Gator Bowl. I thought he had some tough, hard runs, looked pretty
Yeah,
good in the Gator Bowl. And then Noah Vaughn, he's just been chronically injured,
yeah,
unfortunately, because you hear from the assistant coaches, that when he's healthy, he's a pretty good player,
Yeah,
but he's just not been healthy. And that's why you got to bring in three running backs, right? Because X Brown has a history of injury, and Noah Vaughn has a history of injury. So until those guys prove they can kind of stay healthy throughout the course of a year, you have to make sure you have enough depth at running back. Because even in the Gator Bowl, right, they were down to Harrison Whaley and Zay Davis, which in a year that they entered the season with, right, and part of it's because Jamari Taylor opted out, and it's a bowl
sure.
game. But you enter the season with five. So Virginia going into this season with six that they trust.
Yeah, and I think it's a deep room. I'm really interested to see how it plays out. Best overall transfer edition. Are we going with Hillman here? Does that seem like the safe bet?
I'm going to say Hillman to get a player of that caliber. I mean, that speaks to Virginia's growth as a program too.
Yeah,
Who knows? 2 years ago or a year ago, if they would have been in the conversation for a player like Hillman coming from a school like Michigan. I know they got great players last year, right? Chandler Morris and Jamari Taylor, particularly.
yeah.
Mills on the O line. I know he didn't play, but highly thought of transfer. But to get a kid from Michigan like that who had started and everybody knows everybody knows that name when he pops in the portal. To get a player like that, that's a big time addition, and I expect him to be an outstanding player for Virginia at safety.
Most underrated transfer pickup that they got. You got 27 guys to pick from. Whoever you deem is the most underrated.
Yeah, I think Middlebrook's probably running under the radar a little bit. I think
Yeah,
he's going to help Middlebrook and Beebe, right? Lewis has a lot of fanfare because he's coming back to his home state, played in the SEC at Tennessee. But at running back, I really like Beebe and Middlebrook. I think those two guys can help Virginia this season in a couple of different ways. And then I'll give you one other on defense, Ezekiel Larry, a
Mm,
defensive lineman from Yale. You won't see him until he won't get to Charlottesville till after he graduates this spring.
sure.
But I think he can help them as a pass rusher. To me, he'll be a good player for them.
Yeah, he kind of fits right into that Daniel Rickard role. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly,
and
exactly.
that's a common theme with some of these transfer pickups is they kind of fit right into roles that they had last year. Like Larry kind of fits into that one. We talked about Hillman going to that Devin Neal kind of role.
Yeah,
I think yeah, another guy, Nana Nyanwu, kind of goes into the Kazim Moore kind of role. So
yeah.
um,
Fobbs White into the Melton role. I would think.
yeah.
And
Well,
then
he's one that I was going to mention as my most under the radar. Just,
oh,
and
I'm
I think
sorry.
we're on him already, but I think fans kind of look at the stats and you're like, I mean, what is this guy? He didn't have any sacks last year at Baylor, but look at the pressure rate. Like that is something that you've got to keep in mind when you're looking at some of these guys is how often do they get around the quarterback? How often did they get there? And he's a guy that's really productive in that. I think he was seventh among Big 12 edge rushers and pressures last year, which good conference that he was able to
Yeah.
do that in. So maybe sleeping on him a little bit and what he's going to be able to do for this defense next year.
Yeah, no doubt. No, but it is interesting how you mentioned the roles. You can, especially on defense, you can kind of envision who's stepping in for who and how it's going to work out. And of course, there's
Yeah.
spring practice and training camp and all that to get through before you see them in Brazil. Uh, but uh, uh, but I think I like what they've done. I think they've done a nice job in the portal again, and I think they've proven that as a front office and as a recruiting staff that they know how to handle this time of year.
Yeah, it's proven year over year. Now, are they going to make the Indiana leap next year? I'm not counting on it, but I think
Hi, bud.
you got another transfer portal visitor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's been a good solid transfer portal window for them to kind of show, like you said, show it year over year that they are able to go out and kind of replicate what they did last year.
No question about it. I think they've learned lessons over the years, which players to approach. They've built relationships with agents, guys that they've worked with, and know how to handle the system. So
Yeah.
they've done a nice job once again.
Any other positions in the last how many ever long that we should look at?
Yeah, I don't know. The tight end,
Yeah.
Connor Cox. I don't think we mentioned him. He's more of a run blocker type. I think that's kind of what you're getting with him.
Yeah.
They have pass catchers in Twitty and John Rogers. Twitty, he's got to get healthy too. That's a
Yeah.
big one. They need to keep him healthy next year. But I wouldn't be surprised if they, see how spring goes or see what's left in the portal here
Yeah.
over the next few weeks at tight end. That would be a position I wouldn't be surprised if they add one at. But other than that, I'm trying to find where else they could add guys. They brought in defensive tackles, Zion Wilson from East Carolina, and then more recently Jonathan Allen from
Yep.
UAB.
A good name
So
for a defensive tackle, by the way.
yeah, right. How about that? Yeah, how about that? But you're right, and another UAB guy, right?
Yeah.
Brady Wilson. Solomon Beebe was telling me he called Brady Wilson
Oh, there
about
you go.
Virginia when Virginia had reached out. So
Yeah, pretty solid. I think that's going to put a wrap on us here. I can't say it's going to put a wrap on UVA, but it's been a good transfer window. We'll wrap it up there, Greg. Thanks as always for all your work covering it all. Now we can just switch into basketball season, right?
man, hopefully we'll see how we can get to the game on Saturday with all the snow coming in
Man,
for the Tony Bennett court dedication
yeah,
before the big game against the Tar Heels.
yeah, it's coming. We got another podcast coming up later in the week with Ryan Hammer, a college basketball analyst. He will talk a little bit about that game, and also we'll have Testa Ritter come on the podcast as well. So
Whoa.
we got some heavy hitters, Greg. You're not the only one this week.
Oh man, I just feel welcomed. I keep getting welcomed back as you get bigger and better guests than me. I just feel honored that you keep asking me to come back.
Hey man, it for you anytime because you do it for free. Hit the bell icon, subscribe on YouTube to the Who's On Podcast channel. We'll follow, subscribe, leave some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify, and we will see you later in the week.